Hey there everyone, Afrodo Reviews here, and it's time for the next month's TBR. Now, obviously, you probably can guess what the TBR is, but first let's start with the wrap-up. Last month I had a lot of fun doing the video game books that I did on the channel. I was even able to, I had fun doing the collaborations with the various people I knew, although I am kind of sad that Resistance didn't get a collaboration. As I said, I did have a couple people I wanted for it. However, everyone I asked, they either didn't have any experience with it and weren't comfortable talking about it, or they tried to get that experience to be able to be the expert, but in the end decided there's something they could not get into. And I can't blame them, as much as I have fond memories of playing the game Resistance. I don't think I actually remember anything about the setting itself. And God, the book by Dietz did not help in the slightest. But yeah, I wanted to thank everyone who was on my channel helping me do these, because it was a lot of fun to do these. As of recording this video, I'm not actually sure what else to talk about. I don't have any significant channel changes coming up. For the coming couple TBRs, expect a lot more minor TBR selections to end up in the mix. I'm definitely gonna make an attempt to read a lot more during these sections, because, well, I mean, a couple of these books I have are definitely on the smaller side, so I get the feeling I'm going to be done with this TBR in general rather fast. But that being said, I don't want to hover too much on the wrap-up. I really don't have anything significant to add, and I'm really not doing anything largely out of the ordinary, out of my standard. But I am still going with the t-shirts around this time, but that's more for thematic purposes than a genuine change to the channel, although they are a lot more comfortable. I'm not gonna lie. So let's go ahead and get into the next TBR. And what's the TBR for May? That's right, it's Star Wars, baby. This was actually something I was going to do when I first started my channel, but like I said back then, I was so well into May by the time I realized, oh no, it's May the 4th, and I was so well into May by the time I realized that I just played up like I couldn't remember exactly what I was doing. But this month, it's all Star Wars, baby. Well, mostly Star Wars. You'll see. Anyways, it's all Star Wars. The main TBR is purely expanded universe novels, and I mean the actual expanded universe, not what Disney's doing. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do all month. I got a selection of EU novels that I'm going to read, and I'm going to share with you guys, including some famous ones that I shockingly haven't read yet. Let's not delay. Actually, I am going to say I am mildly disappointed, because I was going to get at least a Jedi robe so I can flick it over my head and do the whole thing like this. The Force has dictated that I shall read this next book. I probably couldn't do that though, but so let's get into these books. I'm actually really excited to do this. So we're going to start. I decided that I'm going to do it based on time period. I'm going to do one book before the Clone Wars start. I'm going to do a book set during the Clone Wars. I'm going to do a book set during this Civil War era. And then I'm going to do a book after the Empire has fallen. What's the book before the Clone Wars? Why, that's going to be Rogue Planet by Greg Bear. Now, I really don't know much about this specific EU book. All I know is that it's one of those books that I used to see all the time on shelves, but I never actually read myself. In fact, I had such a vague remembrance of it. I genuinely thought that this was Qui-Gon Jinn, and that was Obi-Wan, as opposed to Obi-Wan and Anakin, when I remembered this book and sought it out. However, I'll find the Qui-Gon Jinn's books eventually. But for now, I'm pretty happy with this. So, without much else to say about it, let's go ahead and read it. The Force is strong in 12-year-old Anakin Skywalker. So strong that the Jedi Council, despite its misgivings, entrusted young Obi-Wan Kenobi with the mission of training him to become a Jedi Knight. Obi-Wan, like his slain master Qui-Gon, believes Anakin may be the chosen one, the Jedi destined to bring balance to the Force. But first, Obi-Wan must help his undisciplined apprentice, who still bears the scars of slavery, find his own balance. I don't think those scars are ever going to fade. Spoiler alert, by the way. dispatch the mysterious planet of Zonama Sakat. I believe that's how you say it. It's going to be Star Wars. I'm going to probably mispronounce a lot of things. Source of the fastest ships in the galaxy, Obi-Wan and Anakin are swept up in a swirl of deadly intrigue and betrayal. They sense a disturbance in the Force, unlike any they have encountered before. It seems there are more secrets on Zonama Sakat than meet the eye, but the search for those secrets will threaten the bond between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and bring the troubled young apprentice face to face with his deepest fears and his darkest destiny. Honestly, I like EU novels sort of like this, which give you a lot more understanding of relationships before the relationships you see in the movies that weren't expanded on as much as they should have been. One of the main complaints with the prequels was, despite the fact that Anakin and Obi-Wan act like battle siblings and like they've been at each other's side forever, you see very little of that on screen. But although I think the Clone Wars animated series did a good job showing that, I'm interested to see the EU's take on it first, because after all, this did come first. The next book will take place during the Clone Wars, and that will be Star Wars, MedStar 1, Battle Surgeons. Now, for those of you, this I do know a little bit more about, but for those of you who are unsure, for those of you who don't know, this is actually where the character Barriss Offee comes from the animated Clone Wars. Now, I know there is a very significant difference between who Barriss Offee was in the Clone Wars animated series and who she is in this book, although I don't know anything specific. That being said, I'm actually looking forward to reading this, seeing who Barriss Offee originally was, and maybe understand why some people didn't like her portrayal in the Clone Wars. At least the betrayal after that twist, what happened with her. But anyways, let's not get too caught up in the minutia. Let's read the back. A surgeon who covers his despair with wisecracks. Another who faces death and misery head-on, venting his emotions through beautiful music. A nurse with her heart in her work and her eye on a doctor. A Jedi Padawan on a healing mission without her master. These are the core members of a tiny med unit serving the jungle world of Drongar, where battle is waged over the control of a priceless native plant, and an endless line of medlifters brings in the wounded and dying, mostly clone troopers, but also soldiers of all species. While the healers work desperately to save lives, others plot secretly to profit from the war, either by dealing on the black market or by manipulating the events of the war itself. In the end, though, all will face individual tests, and only those of compassionate hearts and staunch spirits can hope to survive to fight another day. Yeah, that actually sounds pretty interesting. It sounds a lot more like one of those medical shows like Grey's Anatomy, or more. It sounds more like, I know this isn't right, but that the part of MASH that deals with the wartime surgeons. That's more or less what it sounds like. It actually sounds fairly interesting. It's not a terribly long book, at least not compared to the other ones I have lined up, or it might just be really dense, but I'm looking forward to reading this. So we'll get to this when we get to it. The next book, taking place during the Civil War after A New Hope, is X-Wing, Rogue Squadron. Now, this is one of those series that I've heard a lot about. I actually think it's one of the... I'm not saying this as a fact. This is just merely what I've heard. But I've heard this is one of the older EU novels in the franchise. And it's one of those ones that created the Wedge Antilles character and really raised him up to Republic hero. Raised him up to rebellion hero status within the franchise. It's also, I believe, where Luke showcases a lot of his own starfighter experience that justifies his ability to be one of the best starfighters in the galaxy. Yes, better than Poe and Rey. Come at me, bros. But anyways, so let's read the back. Let's see what I've been missing out on. They are sleek and swift and deadly. They are the X-Wing fighters, and as the struggle rages across the vastness of space, the fearless men and women who pilot them risk both their lives and their machines. Their mission? To defend the Rebel Alliance against a still powerful and battle-hardened Imperial foe in a last-ditch effort to control the stars. X-Wing, Rogue Squadron. Its very name strikes fear into the enemy hearts, so when Rebel hero Wedge Antilles reveals the legendary Rogue Squadron, He seeks out only the best, the most skilled, the most daring X-Wing pilots. Through arduous training and dangerous missions, he weeds out the weak from the strong, assembling a group of hard-bitten warriors willing to fight, ready to die. Antilles knows the grim truth, that even with the best X-Wing jockeys in the galaxy, many will not survive their near-suicidal missions. But when Rogue Squadron is ordered to assist in the assault of a heavily fortified Imperial stronghold of Black Moon, even the bravest must wonder if any will survive at all. So yeah, like I said before, I don't have much to say on this. I've heard it's one of the oldest EU novels. It's definitely one of the most expansive in-series EU novels that I know of, and I've actually had my eye on it for a while. I don't know if the first X-Wing Rogue Squadron actually has Luke in it, or he joins later on, but I do know he does join this group. At least I've heard he joins. But it would be interesting if he doesn't join. Either way. Point is, I'm looking forward to reading this, but I don't have much else to say on it, so we'll move on. And finally, we'll get to the real one. The one that takes place after the Empire has fallen. But one that I'm sure all of you have heard of. Creator of one of the best villains in the Star Wars lexicon. Cementer of Luke's legacy, and the reveal of a longtime fan favorite character. This is Timothy Zahn's Heir of the Empire. I'm pretty sure anyone who's interested in Star Wars doesn't need really any introduction to this book, but this is one of those books that is famous. It introduced Grand Admiral Thrawn, a great villain I've heard. He continues Luke's legacy. It introduces Mara Jade. It introduces it's a great novel. I've heard great things about this book, and yet somehow I've never actually read it. I've read the prequels to this book, both Allegiance and Outbound Flight, but I have not actually read Heir to the Empire yet. So I'm hoping my experience with those previous two prequels does enhance the experience. Before I gush too much about something I haven't actually read, let me read the back. It's 5 years after the Rebel Alliance destroyed the Death Star, defeated Darth Vader and the Emperor, and then drove the remnants of the old Imperial Starfleet to a distant corner of the galaxy. Princess Leia and Han Solo are married and expecting Jedi twins, and Luke Skywalker has become the first in a long-awaited line of Jedi Knights. But thousands of light years away, the last of the Emperor's warlords, Grand Admiral Thrawn, has taken command of the shattered Imperial fleet, readied it for war, and pointed it at the fragile heart of the New Republic. For this Dark Warrior has made two vital discoveries that could destroy everything the courageous men and women of the Rebel Alliance fought so hard to build. I've read stories that take place after this, so I actually probably know one of the bigger twists that's going to happen in this book, namely why in the EU, why Palpatine built the Empire, and why Thrawn is so dedicated to defeating Luke in this book. That being said, I'm going to reserve most of what I have to say about this book until I read it, because most of what I know about it is through the grapevine. I just know that I am very much looking forward to this book, and I just, I hope this holds up to all the hype. But with that being said, there's not much else I can say. I'm definitely going to try, like I said, I definitely at least have one minor TBR review scheduled for this month, as well as I'm going to try to, do a bunch more stuff throughout the months as opposed to just my typical reviews. I've definitely been trying to do it more and more. I'm definitely going to get a tag out this month. I'm not going to promise anything when it comes to the video essays, although I could argue that I've gotten a couple sort of ones out. I would not say I've gotten a full one out. And that's mostly because I'm trying to bang out scripts, but I'm also trying not to sound too pretentious in them either. So, yeah, I'll reserve a lot of what I have to say until I'm sure I can put it in the right words. That being said, I'm not sure there's much else I can say in this regard. I hope you guys are excited about this month as I am, because, it's Star Wars. We can pretend the Disney trilogy doesn't exist while we read the EU. Yeah, let's do it. I'm psyched. Let's do this. But that being said, just remember, with every book comes an adventure, and every adventure is worth having. Even the bad ones. See you later, everyone.